I go back to work next week, which means I'm back to this strange driving pattern where I'm commuting down from Cheshire to Devon at the beginning of the week and then back at the end of the week. And then during the week, whilst I'm in Devon, I'm just kind of tootling around on country lanes. So I've got two completely different driving environments, really. One, as I say, is basically consists of the M5, M6 corridor, 250 miles, and the other which consists of these narrow country lanes in which there's very little traffic most of the time. And what I've noticed is that my driving is completely different. I mean, that sounds really obvious, but the kind of paradigm that I'm bringing to the driving is different. When I'm driving on the country lanes, as I said, they're usually pretty quiet. What I'm most attending to there is the relationship between myself and the physical environment. So I'm looking at the curves, I'm looking at the road conditions, I'm looking at the the kind of overhanging branches and the bushes and things that come in from the sides, because they really are very narrow lanes, some of them. I'm watching out for wildlife crossing the road, because you get a lot of deer and badgers and rabbits, that kind of thing. And it's that kind of a thing, watching out for patches of ice right now. It's environmental sensitivity, very clearly. But when I'm driving on the motorway, it's completely different, because the motorway, the M5, M6, is packed most of the time. It's very, very busy roads, really. And from when I first entered the slip road at like 4:30, 4:45 on a Monday morning, on junction 17 on the M6, I'm basically entering a stream of cars and trucks, and I'm matching my speed to theirs, and I'm watching where they are, finding a gap, moving into the gap. And once I start driving on the motorway, I'm hardly aware of the environmental conditions at all, actually. Sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's windy, all that kind of stuff's in place, but I hardly ever notice that at all. All of my attention is down to the other road users. It's a completely social world, as opposed to a kind of natural world, if you like. And my driving in relation to that, as I said, a kind of paradigm of being to driving is completely different. So instead of watching out for road conditions, wildlife, bends, those kind of things, overhanging branches of trees, I'm watching out for the cars, and in response to that, different kind of rules and heuristics come into play. I'm basically behaving when I'm on a motorway as if I'm a member of a flock, or a member of a swarm, or a shoal of fish, something like that, with all those very, very simple rules that applies to swarms and shoals and flocks. If I'm driving on the motorway, basically I keep a certain distance away from the car in front, I match my speed to the cars at left and right of me, I look for a gap and move into it. That's pretty much it, really. I don't need to do anything else apart from that. If I just stick to those basic rules, I don't crash. I don't need to pay attention to the actual physical environment. I just have to be aware of the social environment and the kind of shared set of rules that we're all following, which, as I say, are the rules of flocks and swarms. I don't know if I've got anything to say about that, really. I just I know what the significance is. I just find it interesting, really. I find it particularly interesting, actually, when I'm coming off the M6, M5, kind of onto the A38 and then onto the smaller roads that lead to where I work, because that's a kind of mixed ecology. There are still lots of cars about, so I am still doing the swarming thing, but I am starting to have to pay attention much more to the physical environment, and that can be quite tricky, I think, actually. That's where I think where problems often start. Not serious life-threatening problems, but I am kind of aware of a switch of emphasis, a little paradigm shift of driving that goes on at that point. I suppose this thing about the different ecologies of driving, the difference between driving in the social environment of a crowded motorway as opposed to the individual environment of a country lane, is that there's a different kind of driver posited by those ecologies, and almost a different kind of person, or a different species of organism, almost, if I can analogize to that extent. The kind of organism that I am when I'm driving on the country lanes is a very independent individual organism. It's the kind of organism that lives by itself, that has to watch out for itself. I can't think of an organism that fits this bill right now, but I don't know, some kind of I don't know, gorillas. Do gorillas live like this? Maybe. And whose main concern really is the kind of the physical environment in which they're lodged. Whereas the kind of organism that I think is created in motorway conditions, again by analogy, is a swarm animal. You become part of a flock of birds, or you become part of a swarm of bees, or a shoal of fish.